Let's talk about what it means to look for a value-added deal. What is executing against the value-added opportunity look like? What are the components? What does value-added mean?
Yeah, so good question. So let's start from just the economics. Let's start there. So when you think about the economics of a value add deal, somehow we have to take a property from where it's worth, what it's worth today, and what is going to be worth in the future when we're done with that. So in the apartment world, as you no doubt know, we love apartments because there's a pretty strong relationship between our ability to generate additional cash flow and the ability to that property to be worth more. So usually for every dollar of NOI that we create, a net operating income, we're able to increase the value of that property by 18 to 20 times. So that's the first thing. We're looking for an opportunity where we have a property that, for a number of reasons, and we'll talk about those in a second, for whatever reason, it is where it is. We feel that we can bring it to the next level and appeal to a much better tenant quality, and then therefore command higher rents. Because we're able to get more rents, we're able to add value, because that's how investors value multifamily apartments, based on its ability to generate cash flow. So now what does that look like? So when you approach a property, I look at the physical component first. The first thing that has to happen to me when I go to the property is it's got to have something that I feel that is really interesting about that property that can make somebody want to live there. I call it character. You can call it whatever you want, but it has to be something about that property that makes it cool, right? Or could make it cool if it was developed. Maybe it's got a really nice lake, and maybe it's just poorly kept. Maybe it has great bones. It's just been deferred maintenance. Whatever it is, you got to figure out what it is that, as a renter approaches that property, they're gonna be impressed from the very moment they get to the property. That's really, really important, because if you don't have that, you lose a huge ability to move rents and to get people to pay for all this value, all this nice things that you're going to add to the property, because if they can't get emotional about it, it's not going to matter.
This is an exterior signature characteristic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. If it doesn't have that character component, we generally don't pursue it, because I need someone, you think about this, if you're bringing your girlfriend home, you're going to have dinner and a movie or something. You don't want to be embarrassed to drive up to your apartment complex, right? You want to be proud of where you live. And if it's not there now, I have to feel like we can bring it there. So that's what's important.
It all comes down to impressing women at the end of the day, doesn't it?
It always does. At least for us men, it does. So now we approach our value add. When I think about value add now, I like to start outside and go in. So what I want to do is I want to pretend like I'm that renter, and I drive up to the property. Does it look appealing? Does it feel nice? Does it feel like it's a place I want to actually turn into? Or, oh boy, I need to keep going, right? So I approach this as I go in. I start with the signage. I start with the approach to the leasing office, and then I'll go after the amenity package. And I love to build out a nice amenity package, because then, if I'm able to do that, I give my leasing people a story to tell. So imagine if I'm able to put an outdoor kitchen near the pool, which is near a playground, also a fitness center, outdoor TV with a nice sitting area. Now that leasing person, when they're touring the property with a prospective renter, we can tell this whole story about mom, dad, and the kids, coming to the pool, mom's working out, dad's watching the football game on the outdoor TV, cooks lunch, everybody has lunch, dad goes, works out, it's a whole family event, right? So people are in multifamily properties. Sometimes they're there because they have to be, but other times they're there because they want to be, and they want to have an environment that they probably couldn't create in their single family home. Think about all those things I just described. It gets very expensive to provide that on a one-off basis for a person. So we like to, I always tell people, we like to get them at hello, right? That Jerry Maguire movie. Remember, you had me at hello? That's what we want to do. We want to get them in, impress them with the amenity package. Now they're excited, like, wow, this place is cool. I love this place, right? I could see our whole family out here and enjoying a Sunday afternoon. And then you go take them to the unit, so you control the whole common area path to the unit. Notice we haven't touched a unit yet. And that's important because everything that goes on in the unit is behind what? A closed and locked door. But if I don't have a nice story to get them to that front door, I can't lease to them. So then we'll go into the units, and all we need to do in the units is not let them down, right? I'm not saying that we don't need to rely on, granite countertops and over the top things inside the unit to grab them emotionally. We've already got them emotionally. We just need to give them then a nice unit. And the reason that's so important is, well, first of all, we need to get them to the front door. But secondly, every dollar you spend on your common area, you only spend it once. Every dollar you spend in your unit, you spend over and over and over and over again. So you want to really manage those unit upgrades. I'm not saying that you don't upgrade the unit. You don't need the unit to grab that person emotionally. You've already done that with the exteriors.
If you can expect to add that much value, how many dollars? How do you size the right amount to spend on a value add acquisition then in terms of the capital expense?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I'll tell you how we do it. We reverse engineer the whole process. So, all right, so what does that mean? Well, we look at the neighborhood and we say, okay, here's our, and this is critical, right? You've got to know the competitive market, where the property's at today, and actually do the homework. Go to those properties, figure out what they look like, and be honest about comparing it to yourselves. So if a prospective renter were to visit your property and all the surrounding properties, where would they put you in that stack? I call it a rent stack. And then say, okay, wait a minute. Now let's think about, if I want to make this property that much nicer, I'm going to improve it. So that means I got to go visit a whole new set of comps, because once I do what I want to do, those old comps aren't comps anymore. I'm competing with another new comp set. So I'll go to that new comp set and I say, okay, this is where I think I can bring this property. Now, it depends on what's in the market. Sometimes we'll see there's a property here, there's properties up here, and we're going to make a property that fills that void. Sometimes we're just going to draft right below those. It depends on the market, but what I need to do is understand where I'm going. So once I know where I can take this thing, and for example, if I have an older property and I'm competing against a bunch of new construction, well then, if there's nothing in between, well, I want to fill that gap. And I want to make sure that I manage the delta between what the new properties are charging and what I can charge, so that I fit, right? People don't necessarily want to pay top of the line rents, but they want to put a swimming pool and a fitness center and an outdoor kit. They want those things. They just don't need it super decked out over the top. So we manage that rent delta. So now we know where we can take it, right? We have a feel for the market and where this property could potentially fit in. And then so that means now we know where rents can go. Once we know where rents can go, we can figure out where value can go. So we can then back into our renovation budget so that we can spend an amount that makes sense for the market that we're competing with, right? So let's say you did it the other way around. You go into the unit, you spend, and people do this all the time. You go do stainless, you do granite, you do backsplashes, you just go crazy, right? And then you look at the rent comps that you're trying to compete with, and you're trying to compete with new properties, but you're not new. Your floor plan isn't new. You got 8-foot ceilings, right? There's some things you just can't fix. So now you spend all this money trying to compete with a property that you're probably never going to compete with, right? So that would, people do make that mistake a lot. I mean, we counsel our third-party clients that we do some third-party management to just not overspend, because you don't need to do all that to get to where you need to be, and typically it's a lot less. So to answer your question in a very short way, it's reverse engineer the process. That brings you down to how much you can spend, because then it really just becomes a math equation. You know what returns you need, you know what returns your investors need. You can make assumptions about your exit cap rate. You can figure all that out and say, okay, this is what I think we can spend.
So we've covered kind of the physical asset, the upgrade, what people often think about when they think about value add. But there are other components, right, that you can improve that ultimately raises the value of the property. What are some of those things?
Well, let's talk about management, because what happens with these properties after a while, if it is operating below market, if it's operating below where it should be, it's no doubt developed some sort of reputation in the market. So oftentimes what we'll do, just depends on how bad the reputation is. We'll rebrand the property with a new name and so on and so forth. But it has to do with the management. And what we usually find when we find these value add opportunities, we go in and we impose our operations, right? I'll call it a 90-day turnaround plan. That's what we call it. The first 30 days when we go to the property, we know what we're going to find. We're going to have 1,000 work orders. I'm probably exaggerating, hopefully, but a ton of work orders, lots of people complaining, and telling us everything that the prior owner didn't do. And I call that triage. That's the first 30 days or first phase. Then the second phase that we get into is, okay, now that we understand what's going on, now we go and we start proving to the residents that we actually will deliver. But guess what, resident? We need you to pay your rent on time. If you don't, we're going to throw you out, right? It's a two-way street here. So that second phase, usually it's the second 30-day period, we then start to impose our processes on it, and people are starting to trust us, and we're starting to get the feedback. Oh my gosh, we're so glad you're here. They never fixed anything. We can see that you're doing everything, blah, blah, blah. Third 30-day or third phase, right? It depends on the size of the property, how long that phase is. But that third phase, it starts to feel like our property now. Then we're in a position that not only are we physically improving the asset, but now we're running it professionally. We're keeping our end of the bargain, right? So now when we go through our renewal process, it makes sense that we're able to move rents, right? People are like, well, of course. I mean, you're actually doing what you were supposed to do. They may not be happy about the rent increase, but we know what their alternatives are, so we don't get too aggressive. And then those that do move, the reputation now has started to change in the marketplace. And as a result of that, we get to market rents right away with those new people coming in. So the management side of this thing, a lot of people dismiss it, but I'm here to tell you that once you start running that property well, your reputation changes pretty quickly. And you'll hear people say, oh yeah, I remember that property. It used to be, boy, it isn't like that anymore. And now, when we add the management changes and the physical changes, it's a completely different ballgame. And if you like the content that we've shared here, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell. So thank you again, and have a wonderful day.